Hi, everybody. It's Joe Cioffi here at the midnight hour. We've got some of the new model guidance coming in, and I've got my nice screen set up there. So I've got all these Brady Bunch boxes that you get to look at. So let me just make sure everything is okay on your side of the board. And we'll say hi to Dio. And let me see if I can do this like I did before. If I can make this a little smaller, I can watch you guys chat at the same time as I'm maneuver my stuff. Okay, so this might work. So let's keep our fingers crossed that it will. Let me just make this a little smaller. Maybe that'll help. Nope. Make that a little bigger. And okay, so we're going to start off. We got all these. We got the new model run. This is going to be probably as close a call for New Jersey and the area from New Jersey to southeastern New England as you're ever going to get. I think that they're probably going to have to put up tropical storm watches up for Long Island and southeastern New England at some point with this, because it's just going to be too close, at least if the GFS has its way. So we're going to start off first. We're going to look at the hurricane itself, Jose, which has gotten much better organized today, and we're going to widen it out. It's supposed to be near the top. Why is this not working for me? I was hoping I was going to have a perfect night. There we go. Okay, so this should do it. All right. And I'll sit in the upper corner in the meantime. And you can see me right over there. So if you watch the loop during its rotation, you can see an eye actually appears. And the Hurricane Center actually did raise the winds now to 80 miles an hour based on the satellite structure. The eye appears, then it just sort of disappears. But it looks like it's really trying to strengthen a bit. There's not too much on the west side, but there is a pretty solid ball of convection here. And we are continuing to see it track toward the west-northwest at about 305 degrees at 8 knots. And I think that motion is going to continue overnight and into the day on Saturday. So we'll take a different view here. Even in the small screen, he knows I'm on. He has to show up. He's just amazing. So we'll go to the enhanced satellite view, and we'll widen that out. There we go. And you can see there's that little hot spot that develops right there in the red. Right in there, there's the eye forms. It looks like it's just continuing to try to organize. We've got these higher and colder cloud tops showing up, and this is indicative of a system that I think may wind up going to 90 or 95 miles an hour, maybe an outside chance that it could reach 100 miles an hour before this is all said and done. So Jose really kind of holding its own here and following the way the models have had it. It's behaving itself, which is a good thing. It makes it a little bit easier with regards to the forecast and where we're going with all this. So we'll give you a view here. Oh, my little box just disappeared. Oh, well. So here's the view from the eastern satellite shot. And you can see in the east, there isn't too much happening. You can still pick out some of the remnant clouds from the trough that is Irma. And then we have Jose right in here. It doesn't really look like it's moved very much at all, but that could be a function of just the system organizing. And by the way, just to point out, look at the action up as you go northwest of the northern Rockies, where they're getting some snow here. The deep trough that's out in the west that's playing a role in this whole episode of how this whole event is going to play out. Now, I'm going to give you a look. Now, this is old data. Before we do that, though, let me put up the Hurricane Center's forecast. They actually adjusted it to the east. They seem to be very much enamored with the European model, and they just nudged it a bit to the east, but basically taking it just west of 70 west, crossing 40 and 70. They do weaken it to a tropical storm. I don't know why they're in such a rush to do that, but the system is likely to become hybridized as we get further north. Yes, Wade, I know I lost myself in the box. I'll find it. I'll find it later. I'm buried underneath some of those graphics somewhere. But the 11 o'clock advisory, 27.4, 71 west, top winds 80 miles an hour. They're carrying northwest, but the heading is actually 305 degrees. So if they wanted to, they could have said west-northwest at about 9 miles an hour. No watches are up, but the Hurricane Center did indicate that because of the fact that this storm is going to probably grow in size and the gales are going to extend fairly far to the west, they may actually have to put up some sort of tropical storm watches or warnings up for the North Carolina Outer Banks. Now, I have some of the older spaghetti model plots, and we'll start with the hurricane tracking models. And we'll get that up there and spread it out so you can see. And there you have it. And I'll leave the satellite pictures here on the side so you can watch the hurricanes rotate. And by the way, we also have going to pay a little attention to this wave that's east of the Leeward Islands that may become a tropical storm or tomorrow night. But let's go back to Jose. You can see the track models are somewhat tightly clustered, but there are some outliers that go further west and do a few weird things and then turn around and go on up to the northeast, passing southeast of Cape Cod as it moves along. And we'll look at the old ensemble, GFS ensemble models. We'll put this up here. And I'll raise it one. And there you have it on the ensembles. Now, these were the afternoon ensembles, by the way, which were quite all over the place. There were about half of them that took it west of the mean track, very, very close to the coast, and even on up to the south shore of Long Island. And then you had a whole bunch, the other half pretty much taking it out to the east. But again, the mean position is the black line that you can follow along, and that is a track that is going to cause some issues if that materializes. And based on what we're looking at with the model so far, it would not at all surprise me. There's my box with the screenshot. Somehow it got connected to one of the other boxes. So I'll have to play around with that a little bit. There we go. Is it going to let me? There, I'm back. Okay, so now let's go to the weather models. And we'll move that up to the top. And we're going to take a look at the new GFS model run. This one I'm going to spread out full screen so you can take a look. And let me just make sure you guys are seeing it okay. And it seems that you are, so that's a good thing. By the way, let me just stop here for a moment and say hi to Bill Thompson, to Seth, to Wayne, Awesome Gamer. Father Simeon is on. Good to see you here, sir. Tammy Lewis. I'm sorry, Tam Lewis. Okay, my fault. And we get everybody else. Kelly Vital. Steve Franco is on. Good to see you here, Steve. Watershed 44. Earl Warren, Big Stories, Smaller Minds. Scott Olson, Watershed is here. J.S. Sweetie. National Hurricane Center, Frank Sullivan. Gypsy. Karina Rivera. I think I got everybody. Kyle Leza. Julianne Steele. Scott Olson. Jake. Thomas Saul. Robert Russo. Pugmaster. And I think I got... And Corey. Bazo... this one's a tough one. Bodzioch and Michael Kufield, and Dio is on here too. So great. It's good to see a lot of the regulars here tonight. So why don't we, at this point, and Maine Wanderer is here as well. Steve Addy, Wendy Blank, Anthony Orr, our historian who keeps all the history and trivia up to date for me. Okay, so you ready? We'll do the GFS, and we will. First off, let me make sure that I got the latest run, which I do not. But you know what? It might not be a bad idea if we review the old run. So this is the. Whoops, sorry. Bear with me. Okay, so let's do the old run here, and this is the 12Z run. So we'll set it up in motion, and you can see that it was fairly, not that it was far out, but it was certainly further out than the new run that you're going to see right now. And I will back it up. So we'll take it again and go backwards, and I'll take it down a little further. Now we're going to jump to the new model run. And you should see on the first frame, as soon as it decides to load, that it's actually a little bit further to the west, not by much, but enough. And it kind of coils its way northward as we move through time. This is Monday evening now. You can see the isobars are on the outer banks of North Carolina with the rain offshore. The rain actually moves to the coast Monday night, touching the south shore of Long Island and coastal New Jersey. Still moving straight north Tuesday morning, with rain advancing northward inland of the coast, and still there at Tuesday afternoon. And at this point, the tight pressure gradient is now running just along the New Jersey coast and touching the south shore of Long Island. At this point, we start to see a move toward the northeast. Okay. The gradient gets tight over Long Island, especially eastern Long Island and southeastern New England. And then that gradient really gets involved as we move to Tuesday night, Wednesday morning, 2 a.m. The lowest pressure, the center, passing southeast of Long Island by about 100 miles or so. But at this point, it's really kind of starting to look more like a winter-type cyclone. So you're getting that rain shield expanded pretty far to the west. And the wind field the gale's expanding far to the west. Wednesday morning, it's just east-southeast of Nantucket and east-southeastern Massachusetts. And then after that, by Wednesday afternoon, it moves away to the northeast and onto the western part of Nova Scotia as it continues to weaken as it moves eastward. So that is the GFS's plan of attack here. Now, why does it do what it do? Why is it doing what it is doing with regards to that sudden shift to the northeast? Well, we're going to take a look at the upper air. I'm going to go way up because I think that's a little bit more useful with regards to seeing the actual trough. And if you look at the area in white, you can see how the wind arrows, how they turn from north and then east and then kind of go southerly. Here's where the system is offshore, and that trough is what is causing this. Whoops, it's not moving now all of a sudden. So let me just set it up again. There we go. All right, so here we go with the first hour. You can see all the troughing that's to the west. And now you got that trough just along the Appalachian Mountains, starting to pull Jose northward. And then it lifts it up north. And right about here, it starts to pull it away to the northeast. There's a trough right in here that comes down and kind of gives it a little bit of a kick. Now, if that winds up being just a little bit weaker, then you're going to have this thing travel a little bit further to the west. See, it takes it right over those islands in southeastern Massachusetts and then on out to the east. I don't think this is an unreasonable track. We still might see some adjusting. One of the big issues is going to be the speed at which this moves up the coast, because if it moves faster, it will get further north before it gets that kick to the east. This is a critical question that the models are battling, because the European was slower, and we're only talking maybe about 6 to 8 hours slower, but it's a significant amount of time in order to get that kick. 6 hours at moving at 20 miles an hour is an extra 120 miles. So you can see how important it is in terms of the forward speed. If it gets up the coast sooner, and there are studies, by the way, that show that these hurricanes, as they move up the coast, tend to move faster than model. There are many, many examples of that over the years where we've seen that happen. And we'll do the wind field next, and we'll back it up. We'll start at 36 hours. And here's the wind field as it comes up. And you can see those gales off just touching the outer banks of North Carolina. The yellow is the sustained gales of 34 knots or higher. You see that arm of red, which is 40 knots sustained winds. We're at 1 a.m. Tuesday, so the wind is probably starting to get breezy. Certainly would get to gales right along the South Jersey coast and just getting ready to touch Long Island. And hello, keep moving for me. I'm not sure why it just suddenly stopped. That's a 78 hours, so let me just click on it again. Well, doesn't want to do it. All right, let's try it this way. Oh, okay, great. All right, so let's move it forward. And there's the this is at 2 p.m. Tuesday, so you've got gales up and down the New Jersey coast over Long Island, on up into southeastern New England, and then you get that red area that moves into the eastern part of Long Island and on up into southeastern Massachusetts. The core of this remains offshore, so that's very important. That is going to impact tides. Now, I don't know what the tide times are, but the high tides Monday night into Tuesday afternoon with the system here, there will be higher than normal tides along the New Jersey coast and over Long Island. That's the day before the new moon. And then there may be a second high tide issue with coastal flooding for Long Island with the system in this position. But by that time, winds are starting to go. Winds have gone around to the north and northwest on the western side, and they're going around on Long Island to the north, and then eventually to the northwest, and it moves away. So a very interesting GFS run that we have tonight, and I suspect that we still might have a surprise or two to look forward to. One is going to be the European model, which today did, I think I showed this to you earlier. With the weird track that it has and the weird circumstances that set up as we go forward. And I'll put the easier one to read, and I'll move it back in case you missed it earlier. This was the Europeans' view from yesterday afternoon, and this is not Sandy, by the way. So let's not, can't equate it. It's a different setup. If it were to suddenly make a sharp left turn from here and go to New Jersey, then yeah, you would have big problems from something coming in from the southeast or the east. But the European turns it out. It actually turns it out a little bit further south and then loops it around down almost to the latitude of the Virginia-North Carolina border. And now you can see in the lower corner, that is the system that's approaching the Caribbean now that may become a tropical depression or tropical storm tomorrow or tomorrow night. And that's the next thing we're going to look at, because I think that one has potential. And by the way, then the European then brings Jose back into New England for another round a week from Monday. This is just a really strange setup. But let's take a look at the GFS again, and we'll go look at the second system. I am not talking, by the way, about the tropical depression that's out off the African coast. I'm not even going to bother with that right now, because that's just way too far and not really going to be an issue. There's probably a fair chance that that system may not wind up developing at all. So we'll go to the Atlantic view, and we'll start it again and see what the GFS does with this. And this is the old run, so I'll pop up the new one. And here we go. So we'll start with the new run, and you can see Jose. You can't see the system coming out of the Caribbean yet, and there it is. By tomorrow afternoon, at this point, if that pressure is right, it's probably very close to a tropical storm. And there you see it, kind of moves along. The pressure drops, and guess where it's going? Right over the Leeward Islands. But it looks like it might be more of the southern leewards than the northern leewards this time around. So it'll get an area. It'll go over an area that didn't get hit the last time. Goes into the eastern Caribbean, and then starts moving west-northwest. And at this point, with this pressure, if the GFS is right, it's a Category 3 hurricane that goes south of Puerto Rico. And this is the third run in a row, I believe, that takes it right over the Dominican Republic. And it takes it over the long way, which would disrupt the circulation considerably. Comes out in the Bahamas, and now we are at next Saturday. So this is as far as the GFS goes, but it certainly is aggressive. And I would not at all be surprised if we wind up with another Category 3 hurricane on our hands next week with this, as the models, both the European today and the GFS, were very aggressive in developing this. So let's take a look. And whoops, I'm going to widen this out so I can shrink this box up just a little bit. Let's get this back down to normal size, and we'll make it nice and small. Move it over to the corner. Bring it down here. There we go. I'm maneuvering, and let me get my face back in there. Okay, so let's take a look at that that tropical system that looks like is going to develop rather quickly. And we'll move that up to the top. Whoops. And there we go. So here's the wave that is moving along. You can see the latitude and longitude. It's between 45 and 50 west. So it's about 600 miles east of the southern leewards. And if you look closely, you can almost see a bit of rotation starting up. It's not quite there yet, but I imagine in 24 hours from now it will be. There's a lot of shower and thunderstorm activity. It seems to have become much more concentrated, better organized. And the Hurricane Center did indicate this in their last tropical outlook that they put out, that they expect this to become a tropical depression or a tropical storm. And they may actually have to put up, this might be one of those situations where we get one of those tropical cyclone advisories during the day tomorrow until they can completely close off a center, because they may have to put up, with the proximity to the leewards and the fact that it's moving at 20 miles an hour, they'll have to put up tropical storm warnings and maybe even a hurricane watch for some areas. So we'll be looking for that tomorrow when during the day on Saturday. Here's the depression that's way out in the Atlantic. And if you take a look, you can see the rotation here, but the whole northern side not really showing much thunderstorm activity. It really does not look that well organized. Here's 30 degrees north, and here's 35, and this is 10 north. So the bulk of the convection is actually pretty far to the south, but the center is probably somewhere in here. And it might have, the water temperatures are a little bit warmer as it gets a little further west, so it might have enough to become a tropical storm. But the conditions in the Atlantic are a little bit on the hostile side with regards to development. So I'm thinking that this maybe it'll become a tropical storm, but I don't think it's going to be an important factor, and we're not going to really pay too much attention to it until oh, I disappeared again. That's not nice. And now I've reappeared. Okay, I don't think this is, going to be really a factor weather-wise. It may just get lost in the Atlantic and not do very much of anything. So we'll watch it anyhow. But front and center, of course, is Jose. And then Sunday, we'll have Jose front and center, and we'll also have perhaps another tropical depression, or more than likely a tropical storm with the system that's coming across in the Caribbean. So let me just jump in on your conversation here. And I see that we have James CIP. Thank you so much for hitting the super chat. That's a cigar for me and a little relaxed time. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much for using the super chat and throwing some coin into the little change jar of mine. Thank you. Okay, so Nick Cortez, if Jose stays off the East Coast, east end of Long Island, how many miles per hour are the winds going to be? Well, I'll look at the sounding if it's available yet. So just give me 1 second here, and I will pop up this. I won't be able to pop it up on screen, but I can pop up on my screen, and I'm looking at now Tuesday evening at a point over eastern Long Island. Where it's generating 40-knot sustained winds. So it could be every bit of 30 to 50 miles an hour with higher gusts. Would not be at all surprised to see that. I'm going to touch a spot near Montauk. And yeah, showing 40-knot sustained winds at the point I'm putting I'm measuring is at 41.05 north, 72.15 west. Right along the New Jersey coast, I'll put it right on the coast for the same time frame, and the winds there are sustained every bit of 30. And if I put it on central Long Island, we're looking at also sustained winds of 30 from the northeast. Going forward, as the core goes over near Cape Cod, I'll check the winds there, and that comes up at 45 sustained. So for Cape Cod and the islands, it could be every bit of 40 to 60 sustained with the gusts to hurricane force. Would not be at all surprised to see that. Again, you're getting that look. If you look at the structure of the storm, in terms of the isobars, by then it really does look like a winter type system, a non-tropical system. Ebiscon, the Weather Channel has this a tropical storm. Okay, if they have it a tropical storm now, then they're wrong because it's a hurricane, and the Hurricane Center upgraded it at 5 o'clock. So I'm not sure, if you're referring to what it is now, or what it's forecast to be at that point. It's a question of, in terms of whether you're going to maintain this with truly a tropical nature or not. Because at that point, if it's becoming more of a tropical storm, it's quite possible that you're going to have that wind, with that wind field spreading out. You may not have sustained winds of more than 60 or 70 knots, 70 miles an hour, but you'll have it over a larger geographic area. It doesn't really matter at that point for the most part, but we'll see what happens when we get through this. We've got a lot of time to watch, and we'll see how this evolves, and we'll be able to get a better fix on the winds over the next couple of days. Watershed 44, hopefully the northern coast of Long Island will be spared the worst of it. Jones Beach will probably get hit hard. Well, I think there's certainly the risk of tidal flooding. I think that's a real possibility with coastal flooding on Tuesday at the high tides. We're just going to have to figure out, once we figure out the timing, we can go from there. Ryan Ford, could the weather models be underplaying the strength of the ridge and wind and bring up? Well, yes, it can be. It may be. That's the GFS's view of things. We may get a different view from the European or the Canadian. I think the speed of the movement is probably the most important. If it goes faster, a little faster than what's being modeled and gets further north, then that's going to mean that it may track west further west before it gets that little kick out to the northeast. Let's see. If you're looking for the super chat option, I don't know how it shows up on your page on how you're watching it, but I know it's there somewhere. So anyhow, 5 days, all 3 models can head west. It'll keep change all the time. Last 3 weeks, hurricane change. Yeah, we're subject to change, as we saw with Irma. It's quite possible that there could be some sort of last minute change. Wendy Blank, weather folks are all discombobulated right now. I'll say, Wendy, I've been nonstop since back when Hurricane Harvey started. I don't think I've had a day, I haven't really had a day off. I think I took 6 hours off last Sunday to go fish. So yeah, we are kind of fried right now. I had rain on and off most of the day. Weather Tracker and Accu says highs in the 70s with clear skies. Made no sense. Wendy, I just want to tell you, if you're using it off an app, those apps are not human interact apps. The weather apps are all computer generated, and they use weather models, usually the GFS. So if the GFS has it clear over your particular spot, even though it might have rain around you, it's going to show you that your skies are clear. Again, those are not, those are computer generated. There's no human being that's actually typing those forecasts and adjusting for local effects. Oh, thanks, James. CIP, I'm really working the models. Yes, I try. Let's see if the Canadian is in. Is this a Hurricane Gloria, Bill Thompson? I'm sorry, Epscon. No, it isn't. It is different. It's different. Gloria was a Category 5 when it was east of the Bahamas, and by the time it made landfall on Long Island, it was a Category 1. We also had a deep trough to the west that brought it up the coast and sped it up as it went along. And we don't have a deep trough here. We have, for the most part, we have a ridge position here in the eastern part of the United States. There's some very weak troughs in the east that are really driving all this. And, that makes a huge difference in terms of the outcome. I think the fact that it goes to this sort of, extratropical nature changes things a little bit, because the storm is going to get rather large in terms of the geographic scope that it's going to cover with respect to rain and wind. Okay, let me see. I want to go back a little bit because Jose can, when it gets up to this latitude, if it starts moving at 20 or 25 miles an hour, that's going to increase the possibility that it could go a little bit further west. And yes, Bill Thompson, the eastern part of Long Island, I think, is going to get have a bit of a rough go through all of this. Let's see. Let me move up. The man with that plan, welcome aboard. It's weird because I've noticed these hurricanes push to the west lately, almost right up to the day of landing. The general trend, and we've been stating this, it seems that this season, we had this with Irma certainly, and with Jose, that the trends are west and south. They seem to be west and south. Right now with Jose, it looks like at this stage, Jose seems to be behaving itself with regards to following what models have indicated. So let's see what happens when it gets a little further north, because again, studies show that storms, when they start to gain latitude, wind up moving faster than modeled, and the models are catching up. And by the way, if that's the case, then weather conditions will deteriorate faster up in the from New Jersey to southern and southeastern New England than what the models indicate. You could have this. You could have rain moving in during Monday night rather than waiting until Tuesday morning. It could come in, a lot faster. So we're going to have to pay close attention to that, as that could be a sign. Instead of getting up to about 37 and 72, it winds up getting more like 38 or 9 before it makes that jog to the northeast. That's going to make a huge difference in terms of the wind. And in terms of the amount of rain that falls. I'm going to bring up Let me bring the models back up again. And move it to the top. Okay. Let me get that a little bit more for you. Hang on. So you can see more map. And I'll change regions. We'll go to the east so we can see really tight. Okay, so there you have it. And that's a nice tight view. We'll start with the 6. So you're not going to see very much yet. I want to get the... Might be better if I make this a little smaller so I can at least make out the time frame. But why don't we... Well, you know what? I'll run it this way, and then I'll shrink it a bit. And there you have Jose bursting onto the scene here. In fact, you know what I can do? This is useful. So I'll put the cursor over the L, and you can see where the L is at 36.6 and 72.7. I can't see the date and time, but from there, we'll take it to its northernmost point before it makes the jog. So there's where it makes the jog. So right here, we're at roughly 38 and a half and 72 and a half. And then after that, it jumps to the east at 39.3 and about 72.1. And at this point, we are at 40.4 and 70.8. So it actually goes left of 40 and 70 on this run, which is interesting because in the wintertime, when you get these winter storms, when they go left of 40 and 70 or near 40 and 70, that has impact for the coastal Northeast. So the fact that the surface low is actually to the left of 40 and 70 would increase that impact quite a bit. Can I pull the sounding up? I think I can. It seems to have gotten stuck. All right, yeah, this is not. You know what? I'm going to have to figure that part of the equation out. So maybe next time we'll be able to look at the sounding. But, oops, I'll shrink this down just a little bit. And just, when I can start adjusting the sizes better. There you go. That works better, I think. But you can see the where the low is on this tight view. Again, we'll put the wind up. And then I'm going to switch to the Canadian model to see if that's in. But see, all through in here in the red, that's where you're basically 40 to 50 knots sustained, and it touches eastern Long Island and touches Nantucket and out into southeastern Massachusetts. So why don't we back up? Let's see if the Canadian is in. There was some problems with the Canadian today. The whole run did not come in. Oh, this is interesting. Oh boy. So let's roll back and see what the Canadian did. Wow. All right, so the Canadian is much further to the left for whatever reason. Sometimes the European follows the Canadian, but you can see the track is actually north-northwest to north. Look at the extent of the 50-knot winds actually get into New Jersey on this. And the low center is at 39.6 and 72.8, so it's actually, pretty far to the left of the GFS. And then it's over eastern Long Island. Now, remember, if it's going that far left, it's going over much colder water, so it does weaken faster. If it's out southeast of Cape Cod, it may hold on to its strength a bit longer, even as a non-tropical cyclone. But the Canadian does weaken it a bit, but it still has it with a formidable pressure there down in the 980s, and then on up toward the Gulf of Maine. So there's an interesting alternative here with the Canadian model suddenly deciding that it might be a good idea to go to the left rather than to go to the right. I don't know if that's going to be a sign of what the European is going to do, but you know, with this system being the way it is and everything being so squirrely lately with regards to these model runs, that nothing would surprise me. Absolutely nothing. And let's see if we can get a... There we go. I'll widen myself out just a little bit and leave the hurricane spinning there on the side. So let's see. See if we got a few more comments here. Let's see. Okay. Are there any good Twitter accounts for New York City, Long Island weather updates? Most of the good ones are from Florida, North Carolina, and New England. Brian Last. Are you talking about, real-time weather updates? There are a number of folks that I'm not big on Twitter. My website post links onto Twitter, but I don't really do a lot of activity there. I'm mainly on Facebook, and because you can only be in so many places at once, and you wind up spending a lot of time. I have a very large audience that I've built it on Facebook, so I focus my attention there. But if you look around, there are a few for Long Island that might be worth looking into. None come to mind right now, but if I put my head to it, if I remember, I'll try and see if I can come up with one or two for you. Let's see. Magnetic. Oh, I missed that. I'm sorry. Magnetic perturbation. Direct hit on my side of the sound. I guess you're on the Long Island side of the sound. Thank you, John Schultz. I really appreciate the kind words. Matarez, could Long Island get... do you think this could hit Long Island directly? If you're talking about the center moving over, well, the Canadian makes it very close. I think it's possible, but we'll have to see if the models start trending closer up to the coast. You want me to scroll up, Wayne? Okay. You had a super chat hit. Oh, okay. Oh, Corey, thank you so much, because it's 12:30 on Saturday. Bodzak. Thank you. Thank you so much for hitting Super Chat. That's another cigar for me. So I got one for Saturday and one for Sunday. Thank you. I appreciate it very much. What do the ensembles of the GFS and European say for Jose? Ryan, the new ensembles are not out yet. The day ones that I showed earlier indicated, about half the members were to the left of the track and half were to the right. And for those of the ensembles, the GFS has about, I think it's 22 different variations of it, and they run them all, and each one usually comes out with a different outcome. And the way you use them is you just kind of plot where everything is, and you see where they're grouped up. And the idea is that, if the operational run, which is what I just showed you, if the ensembles show that there's a concentration of the other members of the GFS, if they're maybe concentrated in a different area, that sometimes can be an indication of where the model may go in the future. The GFS ensembles, there were about half of them were to the left and about half of them were to the right of the operational, and so that kind of tells you that there might be some volatility in the model runs. We saw that last night when the overnight run came in and kind of did this, jump to the left. So don't be surprised if that winds up happening again. Can the new moon play a role, John Schultz? Well, it's going to play a role in the tides. We have a new moon on Wednesday. Usually the highest tide happens a day or two after that, but the tides will be rising. The astronomical tides will be rising going into and then a couple of days beyond the new moon. So it is going to impact coastal flooding. So that's why track here is so very important, because the difference between moderate coastal flooding and severe coastal flooding, that's a big deal. And yes, Bill Thompson, water is too cold for a Cat 3. Water is almost always too cold for a Cat 3. If you don't have something moving up at 40 or 50 miles an hour to compensate for the cold water, you're never going to be able to sustain it. Does Jose have the potential to be worse than Hurricane Bob for the Cape? You know what, Timothy? I remember Bob, and Bob was a pretty formidable hurricane when it moved back up in the early 90s. I'm going to say that this probably won't be as bad as that because of the fact that you have this transformation gradually into more of a non-tropical system, which is going to spread out the wind field and lower the max winds, but increase the area of gales. So I'm going to say probably not based on what I'm looking at. And yeah, by the way, I have this kind of hard, fast rule when it comes to school. If you especially, so I'll prepare you now. When we go into the wintertime, okay, don't ask me about school closings and that kind of thing. Magnetic perturbation, coffee on you. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thanks for hitting the super chat tonight. Thank you. I don't close schools. Every school district has its own criteria of what, how they decide whether they're going to close a school down or not. So I can't answer that question if they're going to close schools. I don't close airports either because they also have their own criteria. And, you better just call the airport or call your airline to find out that information because I can't really answer that. Yes, Father, that is a nice. That's a coffee at Starbucks, or as I like to call Starbucks, $4. So it'll be a nice $4 coffee with a buck left over. Thank you again for doing that. Magnetic perturbation, appreciate it. Could it be bigger than a Cat 1? I think this has a shot to maybe get to a Cat 2 before it moves north of 35 degrees north. The water's warm enough. I don't really see much shear going on. So why not? It's a possibility that it might happen. Julianne Steele, everybody loves you, Joe. Keep it coming. But thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It's very kind of you to say. Now, let me just let you know, I'm home this weekend. So I will be able to broadcast a bit more freely. I will have some work issues to take care of, though, during the day tomorrow. I may have to run in. But I'll figure something out. Anyway, we are. I'm going to. I'll live broadcast tomorrow morning. If I wake up tomorrow morning and they've got tropical storm watches up, I'll live broadcast as soon as I can. But I will do a couple of live broadcasts during the day tomorrow as we start to evolve and with regards to more, the newer model runs that come out during the day tomorrow. And again, I'll probably do one also tomorrow evening. I don't know if I'll do another one at midnight tomorrow night, but if I do one tomorrow evening, I probably will not do a midnight one. But you know what? I've been kind of going on the fly with these things, so I'll leave that possibility open. You never know. Julianne, you want me to do metric? Okay. With respect to what, though? I mean, what would you want me to do in metric? The temperatures or I'm not sure. So if you could just elaborate on that, specifically, what would you like in metric? I've been doing something with the water temperatures. The water temperature map will do in metric because that's how it comes up, and then I'll verbally translate it to Fahrenheit. Jay Martin, when will tropical storm warnings be issued? Well, they may go to a watch first because they do have time. Watches usually go up. Winds, etc. Temps, yeah. Winds I'll be doing in, I usually do the winds in knots. So I'll try to remember, for kilometers. So I assume you're probably not. Are you in Canada or in another country? Temps I'll do in Celsius. Winds in knots. Okay, so for example, usual rule. So it's kilometers is 0.6 of a mile. So let's say we have a 40 mile an hour wind. In kilometers, that would be 6 into 40. I mean, this hour it's tough for me to do math. I'm sorry. I gotta, it used to be I'd be able to do math on the fly, but I'm really kind of tired. But a kilometer, 40 miles an hour, a 40-mile-an-hour wind is roughly, I think, 65 kilometers, something like that. So 65 kilometers per hour. I'm just kind of guessing it off the top of my head. 640 miles per hour. So 6/10, multiply it by 10 and divide it by 6. So 400 divided by 6 is 60 and change. Okay, so that's how you would do it. Okay, so whatever the number, if you do it right, 100 kilometers is 60 miles. So you multiply the wind by whatever the number I give you. So if I give you 100, you're going to 100 miles an hour. To figure the kilometers out, you would go 100 miles an hour, so that would be multiply it by 10, which would be 1,000, and then divide it by 6. So you come up with 100 and whatever it is, 150 something. Okay, that's how you could do it really fast. I can't seem to be do it really fast right now because I guess my brain is fried from all of this. Yakov Perov, global warming will make hurricanes a regular event. Well, Yakov, hurricanes are always a regular event. They happen every year. They are the atmosphere's way of redistributing heat. So nothing, you can't look at an individual storm or a couple of storms or one hurricane season or even 10 hurricane seasons and say that global warming is causing this. I will just point out that we have come off 12 years of no Category 3 hurricanes hitting anywhere in the United States, East Coast, Gulf of Mexico, anywhere. Okay, that is the longest period that we've ever gone without a major hurricane making landfall in the United States. I think what you're seeing right now is basically a reversion back to the average. We've seen Harvey, Irma, and Jose all as major hurricanes this year, 3 of them, and so far 2 have made landfall in the United States as major hurricanes. We are just kind of reverting back to the mean. We're making up for 12 years where we didn't see any. So you can't really look at these individual events and make that conclusion. We certainly are seeing a very active September after coming off an active August, the second half of August. Actually the whole month was active, but was somewhat active. But it was the second half where everything really started to get going. But you can't look at these singular events and go to the conclusion that it's climate change or global warming or whatever they're calling it right now. That's not something that you need to talk to climatologists who look at data that go back, in some cases, with hurricanes, there's data that goes back to about 1850, but before the era of satellites, there could have been tropical storms and hurricanes out there that in the Atlantic that they didn't even know about. So unless a ship actually passed through a tropical system, there was no way to know whether it really exists. So, you have to be really careful with how these, with the numbers and how all this works. Zachary Grybos, what caused the 12-year gap? I don't know. I haven't really seen anything written about it. I mean, I've seen stuff, written about the gap itself, but what caused the gap, I don't know. It also seems to have coincided with a period of time where severe weather across the United States, severe thunderstorms and tornado activity actually also decreased. Now, whether those two are linked together or not remains to be seen. Cyan Hernandez, what do I think of cloud seeding and other weather modification techniques? Well, in the instances where they've done it, it hasn't really worked very well. I think that, they tried it once back many years ago in some thunderstorm activity going on. I forgot where, if it was in Kansas or something, and it turned out, it was disastrous, and it resulted in a lawsuit. So I don't really know too much about the actual seeding stuff. As far as weather modification is concerned, there's a lot of people that follow it, and they've made it very much a religion for them. I don't really, this is probably one of the few times that I will address it, but it's not my thing. So I just kind of focus on what's going on, and I'm really not too interested in, a lot of folks that really are obsessed. A lot of them are really obsessed by it and get very X-File-ish on me, and I just kind of, I don't want any part of that. Okay, Mark, I don't know about power companies and whether there's power outages or not. If you've had power outages with the gales before, then you might again, and then again you might not. I don't know. Can you pull up the tropical storm force wind probabilities map from the National Hurricane Center? Hang on, Ryan. I'm going to try. Let's see. All right, hang on a second. Let me see if I can find it really fast. If I can't find it fast now, I'll try to remember to do it for you tomorrow. Page is taking a while to load. Seems like everybody's on there at the same time. Okay, here we go. Wind speed probabilities. Hang on. My system is loading very slowly, but let's see if I can. Let me shrink myself here. We'll get rid of the depression for now. It'll just take me a second. There we go. All right. So you wanted the probabilities with the wind speed. All right, I'm sorry, just give me 1 second here. That's not what I wanted. That's what I wanted. Maybe that'll work better. Okay. I can't seem to pull the map up right. I got to play with it in terms of the size. Let me try one more thing. All right, it's for some reason it doesn't want to load. So you know what? I'll try and get that for you. Maybe we'll try and do that tomorrow. But I can't seem to get this map, this screen to load right. So I mean, sorry about that, Ryan. I'll try and do that tomorrow. Okay, it'll give me some time. I can play. I got to play around with the width and the height and a few other things. Let's see. Yeah, we're all sleep deprived. I will go to bed in a second. Okay. Active alerts, forecast maps. I will. I'll tomorrow. With a fresh head, I'll be able to put this stuff together for you guys. I like to bring up the maps that you ask for. I just can't seem to be doing it very well. Bill Thompson's nodding out his ambience kicking in. Good night, Bill. It's way too early to be worrying about wind impacts already. Yeah, it goes in the shell. You're right. We kind of know what we're dealing with here. I mean, this is not like it's a huge surprise. So, well, it's going to be whatever it's going to what it's going to be. Let's wait, and we got a lot of time to wait. We got a whole weekend of great weather, by the way. At least if you're up in my neck of the woods, with a nice summertime weekend, the last weekend of the summer season before fall arrives later on in the week. All right, folks. So look, let's call it a night. Thanks for those of you with the James CIP, Corey Bodzak, and Magnetic Perturbation. Thank you very much for hitting the super chat tonight. I really appreciate it. I hope you enjoyed tonight's presentation. I'm trying to, get creative and have as much up here as possible for you. So tomorrow, we'll see tomorrow morning. Good night, Father. We'll see tomorrow morning what's going on. I will schedule, if I ciao, buonasera, buonanotte. I'll see what's going on in the morning. We've got that tropical storm. This tropical storm watches up or whatever they're doing, either for Jose or for that approaching wave in the for the southern leewards, northern windwards. I'll come on sometime, 9 or 10 o'clock, and then we'll check out what the weather models do. Thank you, Julie. Really appreciate it. Good night, Cyan. Thank you. We'll go through this all tomorrow. I'm sure we've got more surprises in store for us going forward as this rather amazing period of tropical activity continues. And I really think we're probably going to have another Cat 2 or Cat 3 with this Caribbean system as it moves into the Northeast Caribbean. And unfortunately, it may impact some of the same islands that got impacted by Irma and to a lesser extent, Jose. Okay, good night, John Schultz. Good night, 99 Wolves. Good night to everybody. And we will see you in the morning.